way too early to work out. Oh, dude, I'm almost out of gas. I don't want to get stranded and have to run home. I really wanted to work out today. It's soaking wet. Needs at least another 45 minutes. I'll drive. Oh, dude, I can't go. I gotta mow. What? Mow? It's winter time. We'll work out tomorrow. 46.
That's so funny.
48. 49. 50. How's it going, ladies? You guys work out here a lot?
Shoulder production. Oh man, I'm doing it wrong. Leg day. Yeah, buddy. Oh, wait.
What gym stereotype can you relate to? Let us know in the chat or in the comments if you're joining us later. But hey, welcome to the Ridge Community Church Online. It's good to be with you today, wherever you're joining us. My name is Tyler. I serve as our online campus pastor, and we're coming to you from our online broadcast studio here in Greenfield, Wisconsin. And I was talking with a friend the other day who's a personal trainer, and he was telling me about one of the challenges that he had in getting his clients encouraged to go to the gym to work out. And he said, you know, the number one reason why someone doesn't want to go to the gym to work out isn't because of those gym stereotypes we just saw, but actually it's related to their insecurities they have. He said that no one wants to go to the gym to look weak or inexperienced or slow, which makes sense, right? I mean, none of us want to go and look weak in front of others. I mean, we want to be strong, but actually what we're going to discover today is that we can actually stretch our view of weakness, and when we stretch our view of weakness, what happens? We can actually experience God's best for us. And if you're curious what that means, our executive pastor, Jodi, is actually going to unpack what that means for us in just a little bit as we continue our series called Here and Now. More on that later today. Now, if you're new with us, I want to extend a special welcome to you. What we want our time together to be is hopefully we will inspire you to take your next step on your faith journey. And if you're wondering what that means, the easiest way to help you do that is if you would actually take a moment and complete our Let's Connect form. And you can get that by just texting the word connect to the phone number you'll see below me, or scan the QR code that you see, and you'll get that form. And that form is the easiest way for you to tell us a little bit about who you are, how we can pray for you, answer any questions you may have, and then we can also help you take your next step, whatever that may be. It just takes a couple moments to fill that out. So while you're filling that out, we're actually going to head over to our Greenfield Auditorium, and we are going to sing to God together. And the reason why we do this as followers of Jesus is we just tell God how much he means to us. And if you're uncomfortable singing, that's okay. You can actually just sit back, read the words, and reflect on them, and just ask yourself, hey, what do these words mean to me? All right, let's head over to our auditorium, and let's sing to God together.
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, and darkness has to retreat. Yes, it does. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that he can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. That's true. Just one touch, and I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. So let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. So let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. So let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like his power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that he can't move. No. Oh, praise the name that makes the way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall he can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes the way. There's nothing that our God can't do. No, 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 no.
Well, just want to say a special welcome to everybody and a special welcome to all you who are joining us online. Hey, if we've never met, my name is Mark and I'm one of the pastors here on staff. And I want to take a minute and just share with you something historic that happened in our community recently. And I don't, when I say historic, I don't use that word lightly. Last week, I had the privilege of taking 17 lead pastors from our community on a 2-day retreat where we spent 2 days talking about this idea of collaboration. And when I say collaboration, I'm not just talking about how to make our churches better. I'm actually talking about how we can start new churches and campuses together. In fact, here's a couple pictures of our time away together. Like I said, there's the 17 of us. And as you're looking at those pictures, here's the historic part in it. This is the first ever gathering in our community in a setting like this of both city and suburb pastors where we talked about a bigger vision than just the vision of our own churches. And I wish you could have just seen the heart and the humility of the leaders that were at this retreat. In fact, here's actually a picture of all of us praying together on the first night, just praying for God to really move in our city. I mean, this is just sacred, sacred stuff that we're a part of. And as I said, we spent 2 days together, and there were really two big takeaways from the retreat. One takeaway was that every suburb church would be committed to forming a partner with a city church. Now, we already do that, okay, but we're going to continue to just build relationships with leaders in the city, and so we can continue to be that bridge from the suburb to the city. And then the second takeaway was that every church would be committed to finding one leadership resident for the end of the year or by the end of the year. Now, a leadership resident is any person that is exploring the call to either plant a new church or a new campus. And so I want you to think about this. I want you to think about if every church did this, we would plant 17 new churches and campuses in the next few years, which would be just amazing stuff to see happen in our community. So what I want you to know that as a church, we will continue to be committed to just this movement of churches that we're seeing happening. And so what I want to encourage you to do is I want to encourage you to keep praying for and to keep leaning in and to keep growing in your own faith. Because as you grow in your own faith, our church grows. And as our church grows, our influence with other churches grows. And then as our influence grows, so does this movement of churches to the point where I really firmly believe that spiritual renewal is truly coming to Southeast Wisconsin. Now, one of the great benefits of being a part of a movement of churches like this is that we get to have some really cool experiences together as churches. In fact, last fall, we had one of these experiences. We had what was called a joint worship night where a couple churches in the city, we actually joined with them. In fact, here's some pictures of that night. And I'm here to tell you some good news. Backed by popular demand, we are going to do another one in a few weeks. And we're going to do it with the same set of churches. Yeah, please clap for that. And I want to encourage you to be there. If you weren't there, I want to encourage you to be there. If you were there, you come there. And if you're watching online and you're like, hey, I was attending in person, but I'm wondering when to step back, this would be a great experience for you to step back in person. And the reason I want you to do is not just for the experience itself, even though the experience is going to be great, But when we step into experiences like this, we connect with the larger vision of what God is doing in our very own community. And so I want to encourage you, mark out March 18th, plan on being here, and plan on being blown away at what God is doing just through the local church in our community. Now, in a minute, we're going to have an opportunity to bring our offering to God. Jesus said this just about the importance and power of giving. He said this one time. He said, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." You know, if you follow Jesus and you don't honor God with your finances, one of the main reasons, according to Jesus, is that the reality is your heart really isn't in it. You see, Jesus lets us know that giving is a litmus test that shows where our heart really is. And so, if you're a follower of Jesus and you don't give, here's what I want to challenge you to do. I want you to take a step in and just start giving at just some point, at some place. Don't worry about the amount, just step in. And if you follow Jesus and you're kind of in cruise control when it comes to this whole idea of generosity and giving, we don't want to be in cruise control in any area of our life. And so here's what I want to challenge you to do. I want to challenge you to step in and be even more generous. You see, when we're more generous, our heart goes because it goes closer to God because our heart follows where our giving goes. And so there's a couple ways you can give. You can give digitally here, or if you're in person, you can give. We have these black boxes all over our auditorium, actually all over our building, and you can give anytime right here if you want. But we're going to take a moment, and we're going to honor God with our giving.
My star is fading, and I swerve out of control. If I'd only waited, I'd not be stuck here in this home. My star is fading, and I swerve out of control. And I swear I waited and waited. I've got to get out of this hole. But time is on your side. It's on your side now, not pushing you down and all around. It's no cause for concern. Come on, oh my star is fading, and I see no chance of release, and I know I'm dead on the surface, but I am screaming underneath, and time is on your side. It's on your side now, not pushing you down Stood on the edge, tried to lose, and you came along and you cut me loose. You came along and you cut me loose. Yeah, you came along and you cut me loose.
Well, I am a total Wisconsin kid. So maybe it's DNA inside me or something. But every year, the calendar flips to March and I get this like internal itch, right? I start dreaming about summer in Wisconsin, and not just summer in general in Wisconsin, but summer up north. Because see, growing up, that is where it was at for me. Just about every weekend, we would take a road trip to my grandparents' place on a lake. They'd retired up there, and it was amazing. Like, I have the best memories of being there. I mean, being on the boat, being in the lake itself, jumping off the raft into the water. I can still, to this day, cut a worm with my fingernail and bait a fishing hook in less than 30 seconds. Try me. Promise. You know, up north was my family's version of heaven on earth. But, the car ride. Did I mention I get car sick? So like 3.5 hours wasn't a good thing ever. And like clockwork, my mom can tell you the exact corner on the map that I would get car sick. We affectionately dubbed it the puke corner. It makes me feel, I guess, a similarity to Aaron Rodgers after his most recent cleanse, if you heard anything about that. But luckily, I outgrew this. But while I was in the middle of it growing up, man, I knew that something unpleasant was coming along the way. And I wanted to do whatever it took to skip over it. So I think I asked, are we there yet? More than any other kid in the history of the universe during these car rides, you know? Like, I wanted to skip over the bad part. Are we there yet? I wanted to get to the really good stuff. Are we there yet? And I think there is something to say about that mentality when it comes to most of us anyway, and our view of our time here on earth and how it compares to our time in heaven someday. Now, maybe you don't want to rush to get there, right? You're not going to rush through it like I wanted to rush through the road trip, but much of the last couple of years have felt like a bad road trip that's gone really, really, really off course. And maybe you want to join me in asking God, hey, like, why aren't we there yet? But we are in the middle of a series that we're doing right now called Here and Now, and we're learning that Jesus doesn't want us to speed through our road trip. No, he's given us this special navigation app, and he wants us to use it to carve out our path because it can make us different right now, and it can make the world around us different right now as well. So here's the deal. Heaven isn't going anywhere. It's fine. It's going to stay there, right? And as followers of Jesus, we'll get there someday. But between right here, right now, and someday, there's a whole lot of time. And Jesus expects us as his followers to start living like we are there already. So it's not, are we there yet? It's, we're already here. And here is what Jesus calls the kingdom of God. It's life as he intended it to be. And the really cool thing about Jesus is that he pretty much removes all the guesswork of what this life in his kingdom is going to be like, right? All we have to do is apply what he teaches us in his most famous sermon ever, the Sermon on the Mount. And in this series in particular, we're dealing with just the beginning chunk of that sermon. It's a grouping of sayings that are called the Beatitudes. And if you have missed any of our previous weeks, I want to encourage you to hop on our YouTube channel, catch up. Shout out to all of you joining us on YouTube right now. Maybe drop your favorite road trip emoji in the chat, right? And I'll check them out later. You really do want to be here every week or catch up digitally if you miss, because the Beatitudes are a package deal. You can't one off of these. They're a whole unit. And they're a unit because they are the kingdom values our King has given us that describe the kind of lives that we all are called to live. So if you want to know his lifestyle, you got to know all of it, right? And once we install Jesus' Kingdom Nav app, he tells us what the result is going to be. The outcome is that we will be blessed. And we've been using the definition of blessed from theologian Dallas Willard. He says it's this: the highest type of well-being for humans. The implication being it's so good. It's so amazing that it can only come from God. That's how good it is. And Jesus says, hey, you don't have to wait to heaven to get this. No, you don't have to. It's not just a heaven thing. So you want to be fulfilled right now. You want to live with a higher purpose right now. You want to be blessed right now. All of that can be yours right now. Well, okay, Jesus, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal. I'm in. I hope you are too. It's got me ready to go. So picture, if you will, okay, Jesus, this is the Sermon on the Mount, so he's on a mountain. Get it? Okay, he's sitting down and he's teaching us. And we're all kind of leaning in because, man, this is like gold. If they had Twitter, he'd be tweeting these out one at a time. And he's just dropping gold nuggets. And we're like, oh, maybe you're doing this. Or maybe you're like, huh? But no matter what, you're leaning in, because every single beatitude he gives you, you're like in all the way. I mean, it's tough stuff, very tough. But he's got you leaning in. And then we're going to get to this week's beatitude. So we lean even more in, and he drops it. He's like, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And if you're like me, you're like, really? Really? Jesus, the rest of this is gold. This is what you got for us? This is like the best you've got this week, Meek? Because I got to be really, really honest. When I heard this was the beatitude that I was going to teach on, I was like, really? Meek? I don't really want to do that one. Is this the one that we kind of just ignore? Isn't this the one that we kind of skip over and want to forget? Isn't this the one that we hear and then we think of, I don't know, like Steve Urkel, maybe Carlton Banks, maybe Ned Flanders, whoever it is, it ain't going to be good, right? I mean, isn't this the one that we just want to forget about? Okay, you go to the dictionary, you try to get some help from that. This is what the dictionary tells us meek means: overly submissive or compliant, tame. I don't really want to sign up for that. Because culture tells us power is where it's at. Power's fun, power's exciting, right? Power is the opposite of meek. Heck, we have entire generations now of kids who say when they grow up, they want to be influencers for their job. Right? I mean, all an influencer does is use the power that they have to get you and I to do something. That's cool. Culture tells us that assertive is cool, being strong is good, being tame is going to get you taken advantage of. Culture tells us submission means that you're kind of like society's punching bag, and no one in their right mind is going to sign up to be meek, me included. So, I don't really want to talk about being meek. Let's go rogue. I found a way cooler word to talk about. You in? Cool. I want to teach you some ancient Greek. I found this word even sounds cooler. Here's the word, praus. Yeah, now you know ancient Greek. Praus. Say it with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Praus. Yeah, you're already cooler. All right, awesome. I learned about this in a book that was written by an ancient Greek soldier, and he was writing about the selection and the training of war horses. See, this is way better than Meek already, okay? And as he describes it, the Greek army, they'd go up into the mountains and they would see all these wild, crazy horses, and they'd try to corral some of them and bring them back down the mountain, and then they would go through this really intense training process. Not a day or two, not a week or two, like months. Okay, and then at the end of the process, they'd kind of section off the horses. Some just really like weren't worth the time, so they'd let them go. Some were going to do some farm work, cool. Some were kind of like the Uber of back in the day. They'd move goods or people. And then just this other slim number of horses, those were the candidates to be war horses. But they weren't done yet. They had to go back to the beginning and start all the way over on phase 2, which was conditioning, and this is where it got really good. Conditioning is where their wild nature gets to learn the concept of discipline. I mean, this is where the slightest touch of the rider and the horse learns to react. This is horses who were trained to stand tall in the face of cannon fire with like arrows flying all around. These are horses that would race into battle and then stop on a dime. I mean, like, think about the muscle control that it would take for these horses to do it. I mean, these horses, they learn to give up their wild, crazy, out of control, rebellious nature because why? They learned that they had an even greater purpose than their own. And once a horse had gone through not just the selection and the training and the conditioning, but they had to make it through all of that, only then would they be declared our word. They were declared praus. And do you want to have any kind of guess as to what praus translates to in English? Meek. Praus means meek. And praus was the word that Jesus used in our beatitude. Now do you see why we get this wrong? I mean, like, our culture, our dictionaries in black and white today tell us that meek means weak, but that is not at all what the audience who was listening to Jesus at the time would have come to understand. They would have heard this as something totally different. When Jesus said meek, they would have heard the equivalent of strength under control. Jesus' definition of meek is somebody who is strong, but who also is disciplined enough to have self-control so they can hold themselves back. Okay, so there's this other aspect to meekness that doesn't really translate well into English either. It's kind of this concept of gentleness, but not outward gentleness like, oh, pet the baby kitty gently, you're gonna hurt it. That's outside of your body. This is a different kind of thing. This is like, I'm gonna release my inner Hulk on you, but you restrain yourself. You hold back for the benefit of somebody else because you can. It's this inside gentleness. That's what meek is. You got it? Okay, so now you're hearing praus and inner gentleness, and we're like, okay, Jesus, this whole meek thing, this is like way more intense than we first thought. And so maybe your view of this beatitude is going up. But if you were this first century Jew doing one of these, listening to him on the mountain, and you hear him say praus, your view of this beatitude isn't going up, it's probably going down. You would have been disappointed, and even so much so that you would have wondered, like, what kind of kingdom this supposed king was bringing in anyway. And here is why. Jews in the first century were living lives that, for the most part, were completely outside of their control. They just lacked it. They were living on land that was occupied by Romans, and they were looking around, and anybody that was prospering was going to be like a Roman, maybe some Greeks. They were overtaxed, suppressed, killed for treason. I mean, these were strong and very proud men, and they were waiting for a king who had been promised to usher in this new kingdom where they were going to finally be on the top, the ones in control, the ones who could decide. And now Jesus comes around, and he's like, submit. Put your strength under God's control. Just chill, just relax. God's got it. I can't imagine that was easy to hear. And I think it probably even made some of them question if they wanted to be a part of this kingdom that this king was bringing at all. Because it sure as heck was going to look different than what they thought it was going to look like. So now let me ask you, does any of what they would have been feeling resonate with you today? Because think about it, they were living on occupied land. Has anybody felt any political tension lately? None? They looked around and they saw everybody else had the money or the power. Have you felt tension at work? Maybe you're frustrated over home prices. Maybe you're upset about the cost of gas and food that continue to go up. And they also felt suppressed. And let me just tell you, we have all been suppressed over the last couple of years because of COVID restrictions. Now, I'm not arguing. I have nothing to say over whether they were good or bad. That's not the point. The point here is that your autonomy, your right to decide, your ability to control things in this area of your life was taken away from you. It was suppression, okay? So now you've got Jesus coming in and he's saying, look, be proud. Put your strength under God's control. Submit to the fact that God's got it. He's going to work it out in his time. Does that grate on your nerves? Just like even a little teeny tiny bit? Because it does mine. You know, a while ago, our leadership team here at the Ridge, we did an assessment together. And I love this stuff. I don't know if you do too. I like personality assessments, leadership assessments, the whole thing, because I think it's a good chance to find out a little bit more about how God made me. And I also love the dudes that I serve with, so I get to find out a little bit about them. My favorite part, though, is that when you put all the puzzle pieces together, we find out more about how our team works. So I'm way into this. I'm all in. It's an assessment I've never done before. So I don't know how to, read the results. And we're going through, and everything's kind of making sense. And then we get to this one rating, and I can see the average line, and I can see mine is, here. And I'm like, It was my desire for autonomy, for self-control. So here's the deal. I will be on your team. I will be the hardest worker, most enthusiastic, dedicated, and loyal team player. Just don't try to control me or boss me around, because it's not going to work out good for you, and it's definitely not going to work out good for me. Okay, then we have Jesus literally saying, put my strength under his control. Ugh. I mean, it ain't easy for me, Jesus, but maybe I'm alone in that, huh? Let me be really clear with all of you. When we're talking about praus, meekness, it is not Jesus asking you to be a doormat, because Jesus was never a doormat. He was incredibly strong. I mean, he healed people. He rose people from the dead. This is not the same thing as being a doormat. Meekness is submitting your strength under God's control. And it probably looks a little different than what you think it may. It looks like Jesus washing the feet of a disciple that he knew was going to betray him. And it looks like Jesus walking into the Garden of Gethsemane the night before he was crucified, and he's praying his guts out to God, saying, if there's any other way I want out, please let me find a way out. And him still submitting to a no from his dad. It looks like Jesus being spit on, made fun of, lied about, tortured, eventually killed for you and for me. And the crucifixion of Jesus is probably the greatest example of meekness we have, of submitting personal strength under God's control. And no, I don't think it was easy, not even for Jesus. So, if the ask from Jesus to be meek is frustrating you in any way at all, maybe just a little bit, right? You probably are right where most of the people who were on the mountain with him that day would have been. But here's the thing, he didn't stop with the word meek. There's a whole back half to the beatitude, right? And that's where the promise or the reward for living meekly comes, and it's good stuff. So what does he say? He says, blessed are the meek, for, here it comes, they will inherit the earth. Well, that's pretty good. That's a good reward, Jesus, thank you. Okay, but the first century Jews, again, we got to put on their context. This would have even sounded better to them than it does to you and I today. And here's why. Jewish culture in the first century was predominantly based on oral traditions. Most of them couldn't read and write. It's not like they're going to have a pen and paper laying around all their houses. No, if you wanted to learn something, especially scripture, you were going to go hear it from your rabbi, maybe hear it from your parents, and it would get repeated over and over again until you could repeat it back as well. So I want you to think about this kind of with the same filter of that game, Name That Tune. Have you ever played that? The idea being you're going to guess a song as fast as you can. And, our brains work in a way that we've heard these songs over and over and over and over. So you can hear maybe one, maybe two notes of a super popular riff, and boom, your brain completes the rest of the song, and you're like, I know it. I know the whole song. Here's the answer. That same exact thing would have happened when these people would have heard Jesus say, for they will inherit the earth. They would have been like, got it, nailed it, know it, Psalm 37. And in Psalm 37, it says this, but the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. See, Jesus would have said just a couple of words in the Beatitude at the back half, and they would have had this whole context because they knew the entire psalm, and they would have filtered it over the Beatitude, and it would have been even more amazing because they understood the entire context that Jesus was talking about. Now listen, Psalm 37, we're not going to read the whole thing today, but it is amazingly encouraging. So if you want to be reminded of God's promises in the midst of tough times, you got to go read the whole thing. Somebody watching on YouTube, cut and paste it, put it in the chat so everybody can read it after, and all of you note on your phone, text yourself, whatever you got to do. Psalm 37, you need to read it later, okay? Just a couple of notes from it for today's purposes. It says this, when the wicked are winning, maybe they got the land, maybe they got the money, maybe they have it all, and our anger is building, that rage is coming inside, and we're tempted to get revenge or act out in whatever way. This psalm is God's reminder to all of us that the Lord is coming. We can rest in our meekness. We can know God is in control. And he's bringing us two things. What are they? Remember, he says, peace and prosperity. And we also need to trust that his change is coming in his time. His kingdom is coming. It's why in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus tells us, this then is how you should pray. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Hey God, may your reign in heaven, may all of the mightiness that you have there, may it come here, may it be here now, and may it change this earth right away. But you know what the best part of the back half of this beatitude is? It's just one word. Did you catch it? Blessed are the meek, for they will, here it is, inherit the earth. There is so much richness in the fact that Jesus used inherit. Because when you inherit something, you don't earn it, do you? No, it's freely given to you. It's a gift. And for a first century Jew to inherit any land, let alone the whole earth, it would have been a game changer. I mean, land would have been a place to grow food, a place to have your animals graze. Land would have meant a place that you could build a home or build a shelter. It would have meant financial stability and security, not just here for your family, but for generation after generation after generation, forever. A game changer. And Jesus uses that word for one more reason too. It's also him reminding us that we can be meek. We don't have to worry because our Heavenly Father is in control. We aren't. So when we want to act out with the aggression of a wild stallion, we can be meek, we can be proud. We can have inner self-control because our God is the one in control. And he's already promised us an inheritance that is better than anything we could bring about through our control anyway. That is a pretty amazing reward. So, quick recap of where we have been. Okay, 3 things. We know what meekness is not. Meekness does not mean being weak. We also know what praus, true meekness is. It's the strength of a war horse under the control of God. And last thing, we know our reward is an eternal inheritance. So how do we really begin to live meekly every day? Well, with the few minutes I have left, I just want to give you 2 ideas, okay? I want you to ask one question, and I want you to pray one prayer. So first, ask one question, but it's not an easy one, okay? Here's the question. Do I trust God enough to be meek? Because if you're going to be meek, if you are going to submit, if you're going to put your strength under God's control, you got to know that God is who he says he is, because it's not going to be easy. And when things get tough, it looks like it's not going to go your way. Are you strong enough to stay meek? You know, if somebody else wins and you lose, if you get lied to, cheated on, stolen from, made fun of, are you strong enough to stay meek? Here's the thing, your ability to stay meek, it is directly proportional to your trust in God. They go down together, they go up together, they are linked. They cannot be separated. That is why this is such a tough and crucial question. But remember, okay, meek people, they have the strength. They're choosing to restrain it. They're choosing to submit the control to God because they really trust him. They really believe that he is in control of it all. And even when it doesn't turn out the way we want it to, meek people continue to have faith in their King Jesus and the kingdom that he represents. But that's a tough ask. So if I'm saying all of this and you're thinking and you're like, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm meek. I actually think that's okay, and let me tell you why. Admitting it means two things. You're being honest and you're self-aware. And in my heart of hearts, I really think that God can work with both of those things. And it's going to lead you to the second thing that I want you to do, which is pray a prayer. A special kind of prayer, a meekness prayer. And meekness prayers have three parts to them. Part number one is being honest, but you got to be like really, really brutally honest with Jesus. And if you have realized you don't trust God, you don't trust his control of things, you got to tell him that. You know, if there's something blocking your ability to submit to him, you got to fess up to that. And if you're struggling with being meek, but you don't even know why, you got to ask him for help to figure it out. So you got to be honest. And then the second part of the meekness prayer is asking for meekness. You have to ask him to move your heart in his direction. And maybe it's in a particular situation. Maybe it's when you're around a certain person. Maybe there's a specific area of your life that feels way outside of God's control. You want to ask him for help reining you in like the wild stallion we know you are. Ask him for meekness. And then we come to the third part of the prayer, and that's super simple. You just thank him. And you can thank him for a bunch of stuff. Maybe you thank him for the example that Jesus set when it comes to meekness. Maybe you're going to thank him for controlling things and removing the burden from you, the weight of that idea of control from you. Maybe you're going to thank him for the fact that you're going to inherit peace and security. My favorite, maybe you could just pause for a moment and thank him for making you an heir to his kingdom, and then realize the power in that idea. Because here's the thing, I don't think God wants you to see your life as a road trip that's gone off course, right? He doesn't want you waiting and asking, are we there yet? Till you get to heaven someday. He's given us all of the Beatitudes so we can have a tangible way of living in his kingdom right here and right now. And I don't want you to leave without having the opportunity to feel a little bit of his kingdom right away. So we're going to just pause and take this opportunity to pray our own meekness prayers. We're going to have some music playing, and I'll be quiet in just a moment. I want you to do just the three things that we talked about, right? You're going to be honest, you're going to ask for meekness, and you're going to say thank you. And then I'll wrap us up. But for now, why don't you meet with God? Father, this whole idea is just so countercultural. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around. Please don't let us leave. Please don't let us click away online. God, just please don't let us be done until we've at least taken one step closer to understanding your heart for us and why being meek is so important to being a part of your kingdom. God, where we see the world around us telling us to be one thing, would you just give us the courage to be something different? We just thank you so much for the example that your son set. And God, more than anything, may your kingdom come. God, may your will be done right here, right now, immediately, on earth as it is in heaven. And we pray all of this in your son's name. Amen.
Let's practice meekness together this week and put our strength under God's control. And if you were encouraged at all by what you heard today, I want to ask you to just do a couple things. First, if you're joining us on YouTube, just give this video a thumbs up and then subscribe to our YouTube channel, because when you subscribe, you'll actually be notified when other videos and services are available where you can join us. And then take today's link and share it with a friend and just invite them and say, hey, this was really helpful for me. I think it'd be helpful for you. Why don't you go ahead and check this out? And then next week, we're going to continue our series called Here and Now. We're actually going to discover how being hungry is actually a really good thing, and it helps us experience God's best for us. And so make sure you join us either in person or online for that. Invite a friend to join you. And as you are practicing meekness this week and you're putting your strength under God's control, remember, as you do that, you are fulfilling God's vision for you, which is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. Hey, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.